Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Today is Tuesday, April 14, 2026. Coming up, Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. He is facing re-election this year. Democrats are looking at his seat as one to hold in order for them to take control of the U.S. Senate come January. We'll talk with Georgia Senator Jon Ossoff. He's here in the studio talking about the campaign, the war on Iran, voting rights, and other critical issues. Also, Maryland, they passed a state voting rights act. More and more states are looking to do that after what is happening in the nation's capital. A lawsuit was required. We have body cam footage released revealing that a white police officer in St. Louis, Missouri, lied about the circumstances surrounding the shooting of a black teenager. We'll have that for you. Plus, a black woman from Georgia is suing several law enforcement agencies for wrongfully raiding her home in search of a suspect who had actually been in custody for months. Also, it has been a year since Louisiana State University football standout Kyren Lacy tragically took his life. Black Star Network's Wesley Lowery wrote an in-depth piece for Men's Health magazine about the case and will join us to discuss the family lawsuit. Plus, in tonight's Shop Black Star Network segment, we'll feature a body care line made with African ingredients designed to help those struggling with eczema, acne, and extremely dry skin. Folks, it's time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered, the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Folks, 2021, he helped Georgia turn blue by winning the election. It was a runoff election for United States Senate, defeating Republican incumbent David Perdue. Remember, also, you had Raphael Warnock, who also was running the same time. This was on the heels of President Joe Biden, as well as Vice President Kamala Harris. Well, not their vice president, them winning the election. All of a sudden, you now see them win. Now, a couple of years ago, Warnock won his 6-year seat. Now, Ossoff's turn is to retain his seat. And joining us now, Senator Jon Ossoff here in studio. Glad to have you here. First time in our Black Star Network studios.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
So it's been a busy 5 years. And let's go back. The election was January 5th.
Yeah.
And then I remember the next day, the Warnock team, they were at a restaurant. We were there. The staff was there. They were just excited about the long, arduous 5-week process. And as we're sitting there, we're watching the television. And January 6th is happening. And here we sit now, 5 years later. Donald Trump has pardoned those people. He's put a lot of people in his administration. And it is as if that never took place.
Well, Roland, thank you again for having me. And I know you followed those runoffs very closely down in Georgia. And yeah, my victory, which was the victory that won the Senate majority, was called early on the morning of January 6th, just hours before the president's mob sacked the United States Capitol, the violent act inspired by his election denialism, violating the seat of our democracy to try to prevent the peaceful transfer of power. And you're right, having ascended once again to the presidency, he pardoned the violent criminals who attacked the Capitol, filled his administration with election deniers, and has now turned the federal government into an instrument of misinformation and revenge, still aimed at those 2020 election conspiracy theories, many of them centered in Georgia. And it was in Fulton County, Georgia, just a few weeks ago, where the FBI, overseen by Tulsi Gabbard, who is our nation's spy chief, she is the director of national intelligence, raided those Fulton County ballots. And that is a direct continuation from his efforts that led to the January 6th attack, all the way now to these attacks on voting rights in Georgia and across the country.
So with that taking place, and some of the people he pardoned have been now convicted of sex crimes, of pedophilia. I mean, folks, bad actors who he pardoned and gave no look whatsoever, no vetting whatsoever. So you take that, you see what's now happening with the war in Iran. We see what's happening with the economy. And what I still get from African Americans is, okay, but how is this stuff really impacting me? What are you saying to people as you are talking to them about voting you back in? And also, what are you saying to them that if Democrats get control of the United States Senate, what the agenda is going to be? Because just saying Trump sucks, and he does, is not enough.
So first, let's talk about what those 2 Senate victories in Georgia unlocked in terms of impactful public policy that's lifted up people's lives in Georgia. Then we can talk about what Trump's doing now and then the agenda moving forward. So, you know, there are folks across the country who, after elections, quite reasonably ask the question, what does this really achieve? How do I feel a tangible difference? But if there's anywhere in the country where people have in a profound way felt and seen their vote matter, it's Georgia. As a direct result of our winning those 2 Senate runoffs, we passed the $35 insulin cap. We directed record funding to HBCUs across the country, including $250 million in supplemental funding to HBCUs in Georgia. We capped out-of-pocket costs for prescription drugs for seniors on Medicare. None of those things would have been possible had Georgians not marched to the polls in record numbers and elected us. You've got those big national policy achievements, but what you also have in Georgia is we flipped the script in terms of who have long been denied representation, now has representation that delivers material investments in communities who have never had a seat at the table in our state. Think about the funds that I appropriated for Southern Regional Medical Center in Clayton County, Georgia, a part of the state that's been losing hospital and healthcare and clinical services, able to expand services. resources that I've delivered to expand affordable housing in Lovejoy in Clayton County, Georgia, resources I've delivered to install water filtration systems in East Point, Georgia, to take PFAS, these toxins, out of the water supply. Senator Warnock and I together have directed federal resources to long underserved and neglected parts of the state. People feel that, and they know it. What the president is doing right now is directly depriving those communities of resources and investment and access.
Oh, he's literally said, even blue states, we're not sending them resources. I mean, federal judges even ruled against it, say you can't do that.
And not just blue states, but specifically black communities. So Thomasville, Georgia, because of legislation that we passed, the Biden administration had awarded a grant to build a new health clinic and to build new sewer infrastructure in a part of the state that had been afflicted by air pollution, where there were a high disease burden, and the federal government had never seriously invested in this part of Georgia. So here, the people of Thomasville have worked their hearts out to secure this federal grant.
How much was it?
I don't recall the exact amount, but enough to help fund a new health clinic and water infrastructure upgrades, a big deal for a small city.
Right.
Trump administration comes in, and after all that, they canceled the grant.
What do they call it, DEI?
That's exactly what
Same thing happened in Loudoun County, Alabama. Sewage coming into the homes and yards, selling it under the Biden-Harris administration. They said, oh, this is DEI.
Yeah, and I questioned Lee Zeldin, the EPA administrator, when he came before Appropriations about this, and he flat out said it. He said, yeah, we viewed that as DEI. And what that really means is that this administration did not deem the people there worthy of that kind of federal investment.
He liked the fact that he won Georgia, but this is what I keep saying, and he loves touting places where he won, but those are black folks in Georgia, and he's like, the hell with them.
Look, just...
'Cause I call it defunding black America. I say this administration is specifically trying to defund black America in every way, education, health, black businesses, you name it. There's a bullseye on the targets of black America from this administration.
You know the history in the city of Atlanta, where Maynard Jackson, a visionary mayor, helped to build black generational wealth and unprecedented opportunities for black entrepreneurship by ensuring that black entrepreneurs had a seat at the table, for example, when it came to doing business at our airport. Trump administration has come in and tried to dismantle all of that too. But you also asked about what we're trying to achieve moving forward. And a couple things I want to highlight that are of particular concern in Georgia. First of all, housing crisis. Georgia is among the states in the country with the highest concentration of these huge out-of-state hedge funds and institutional investors buying up tens of thousands of homes. There are some neighborhoods in Metro Atlanta where 90+% of a single-family rentals are owned by one company. They're driving Georgians out of the housing market, and then folks who can't afford a home wind up renting from the same companies.
Forcing folks to be renters and not homeowners.
And so that's something where I've led Senate investigative work. We've just passed an important legislative provision. We need to do more. That is of great concern to my constituents. People are also suffering immensely right now from our healthcare crisis. Georgia had a health emergency even before they gutted Medicaid and dismantled these Affordable Care Act benefits. We have one of the highest maternal mortality rates in the country, huge inequities in health by race. We've lost...
I thought the pro-life people care about, I thought they care about life.
Well, you know, we've lost so many rural hospitals and hospitals in predominantly black parts of the state over the last 15 years because our states refused to expand Medicaid. And now folks see their insurance premiums skyrocketing. And so we need to not just wrap our arms around this cost crisis when it comes to health care, but also stand up for the Georgians who are seeing delays and denials of medically necessary care at the whims of insurance companies who are seeing record profits.
But you've got a person who says, we can't afford daycare, we can't afford Medicare, we can't afford Medicaid, we can't afford these things because we got to fund a war, and who now wants to have a $1.5 trillion State Department. To me, listen, I understand defense. And I watched as that number went up even under President Biden, where it went over $800 billion. But to now say, let's go to 1.5 trillion, that means it's a bunch of other stuff that's going to have to get chopped if that's going to be the case.
Yeah, I mean, he's laid it out in his budget. Same president who says we can't afford, it's a direct quote from the president, daycare, Medicaid, Medicare, and wants to spend $1.5 trillion on the Pentagon, proposes funding that by cutting the program that helps folks afford their utilities, cutting affordable housing programs, cutting cancer research. This is the Trump administration's answer to our nation's cost of living crisis, and it's one of the reasons that he is so deeply unpopular across the country, including in Georgia.
So how do you make this case to get those voters in Georgia, but especially African Americans? Because there were several 100,000 that did not vote in 2024. And as every day progresses, we get further away from what I call the Black Freedom Movement. And so those voters are passing away. And 18 to 44, they don't vote at the same rate as 65 plus. And so what are you saying to them that if you are reelected and Democrats are in charge, how their lives can improve as opposed to what is happening right now?
First of all, I think Georgia is special because of both our deep history and our recent history. The history of the civil rights movement is of profound and central importance in our consciousness in the state of Georgia. And the recent experience of historic electoral victories that made a transformative difference for our country proves to people their power and the importance of their vote. And what I am seeing in backyards across the state, at rallies I'm holding across the state, in living rooms across the state, is unprecedented energy and determination right now to vote in defiance of these efforts to strip voting rights and suppress votes, and for Georgia to speak again in a way that echoes down through history. So what I am seeing on the ground in Georgia, what I'm feeling on the ground in Georgia, is determination and defiance and a recognition that these midterm elections are the whole ballgame. This White House, its purpose is not policy, its purpose is power and entrenching its own power. And they are using the federal government as a political weapon to crush opposition voices, to intimidate dissent, to go after voting rights. I think people recognize the gravity of this moment.
While you're having that, what are you also saying to Ken Martin, the DNC, but more importantly, these Democratic donors of these super PACs to stop ignoring the South? You've got Governor Roy Cooper running in North Carolina, obviously. Let's say he wins, you get reelected, you have Senator Warnock. You're the only 3 Democratic senators from the South. And the reality is, when you look at these places, significant numbers of black voters there. And Democrats have historically just said, we got no shot. I mean, 2012, Obama wins. I'm waiting to go on CNN when I was with him at the time. Chris Van Hollen, now your colleague. We're standing in the wings, and I say to him, when are you guys going to invest in Georgia and Texas? It's too red. I was like, no, it's not red. I started rattling off the numbers, and he's like, it's going to be the cost. And I was like, no. I said, you got 2 million eligible unregistered Latinos in Texas. I said, Texas has the most eligible black voters of any state in the country. So I started running off talking about Georgia. And he literally goes, just cost prohibitive. I said, you're guaranteed to lose if you never even try. And then luckily in 2012, Stacey Abrams and others then begin to say, fine, we're not waiting on y'all. And then what happened in 2012 leads to your election, leads to Warnock's election, leads to Biden-Harris winning. And so what Bishop William Barber always says is, they said the problem with the South is it is not organized, it's not mobilized. So what are you also saying to Democratic donors and others by saying, stop ignoring the South and trying to only chase white suburban voters?
Look, I think that the power and central importance of Georgia and the South in our national politics today has been proven. I mean, in 2020, when Senator Warnock and I were candidates, it was like pulling teeth. We were told there were all these other states across the country that were much more likely and that maybe if there was enough of a wave to win in those places, we could win in the state of Georgia. And frankly, we lost in most of those places, but we won in Georgia. And the infrastructure that we have built, the muscle memory that we have built, and again, I want to come back to the point I made at the beginning. Georgia is one of those places where voters have gone to the polls in record numbers, made a huge change, and seen immediate, tangible results. So, look, we are asking folks to invest in victory in Georgia. I am the only Democratic senator. Let me make this very clear. I am the only Democratic senator running for re-election this year in a state that Donald Trump won. The National Republican Party is going to pour hundreds of millions of dollars into Georgia to unseat me. And if folks want to help us make a difference, they can go to electjon.com, electjon.com, and ship in $5 or $10.
This war is happening. We're supposed to have a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Iranian ships are coming through. Just your assessment of what in the hell is happening 2 blocks from here and what's happening in Iran.
Well, this is what...
And while that was supposedly a negotiation, Trump was at a UFC fight in Miami.
This is what happens when a president takes the nation to war without clear objectives, without...
Hold tight 1 second. Is his mic still breaking up? Can we hear him? He's good? All right, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The president took the nation to war without clear objectives, without a clear strategy, without a plan for the aftermath, without the consent of Congress, and without the support of the nation. And what we've seen are 13 brave Americans killed and hundreds more wounded, thousands of civilian casualties, military equipment that it will take years for us to replace, skyrocketing inflation, and massive damage to our position and reputation in the world with no strategic achievement. And the impact on the cost of living in Georgia right now is catastrophic when people were already struggling to get by. I think the administration is flailing and undermining both our national security and our national prosperity.
There's somebody who's watching and listening, and they say, okay, Senator Ossoff, I heard everything that you said for the last 18 minutes. I'm just not believing that this stuff is going to change, and I'm not believing Democrats care. What do you say to that person who thinks that? They are an eligible voter. They are someone who more than likely will vote Democrat, or they will simply choose the couch. How do you convince them that the couch is not an option in November 2026 in your race and other races across this country?
In the state of Georgia, there's no city, town, or county that I can't go to right now and point to something that has changed for the better as a result of what Georgia voters did in January of 2021. Likewise, as I travel the state of Georgia, there's no town or county I can go to today where people are not shocked and afraid of what this administration is doing. The chaos, the corruption, the instability, the abuse of power. It's not just Democrats who are rejecting this. It's unaffiliated voters, people who are apolitical, middle-of-the-road folks, and a growing number of Republicans as well. So I think that people understand the stakes. They understand what the power of their vote can achieve. And folks need to get engaged because there's an awful lot riding on this election this fall.
Well, we were on the road last week here in Virginia for the April 21st referendum, and so I'm quite sure we'll be spending some time in Georgia, and North Carolina, and Ohio come the fall. All right, Senator, glad to have you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, folks. Got to go to break. We come back. I'll check with my panel. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
Virginia, we are counting on you. Republicans want to steal enough seats in Congress to rig the next election and wield unchecked power for 2 more years. But you can stop them by voting yes by April 21st. Help put our elections back on a level playing field and let voters decide, not politicians. This is the responsible thing to do. Help us chart a better path forward, Virginia. Vote yes by April 21st.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
If in this country right now, you have people get up in the morning and the only thing they can think about is how many people they can hurt, and they got the power, that's the time for mourning.
For better or worse, what makes America special, it's that legal system that's supposed to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
We are at a point of a moral emergency. We must raise a voice of outrage. We must raise a voice of compassion. And we must raise a voice of unity.
We are not in a crisis of party versus party. We are in a crisis of civilization, a human rights crisis, and a crisis of democracy itself. And guess what? You've been chosen to make sure that those that would destroy, those that would hate, don't have the final say, and they don't ultimately win.
How you doing? I'm Mark Curry, and you're watching the Black Star Network. That's why I got these glasses on, because that black star is bright.
Folks, my pound, Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali, former senior advisor for environmental justice at the EPA out of D.C. Winnie Siant, co-founder of Politicking out of D.C. as well. Joe Richardson, civil rights attorney out of Los Angeles. Glad to have all three of you here. Winnie, I want to start with you. The thing about that discussion with Senator Ossoff, one of the things that was striking, and again, it's if people really pay attention, throughout the entire interview, he brought every issue back to Georgia, back to Georgia, back to Georgia. And when you look at some other campaigns, when they want to make it a national election, I always say, no, you gotta bring that thing home, because that's the people who are gonna be voting. Yes, the Georgia Senate race has national implications, but it is really a Georgia statewide race. Cooney, you're mute.
I think he was able to do that masterfully. The only national statements that he really made was that he was the only Democratic senator up for re-election in a state won by Donald Trump. I hear an echo. Do you guys hear me okay? So basically, one of the great things about what Senator Ossoff was saying was that, like you said, Roland, he continued to bring it back home. He continues to out-fundraise his competitors in Georgia. He continues to focus on the issues and the focal points. And I think he really has a really bright vision for Georgia. I'm excited to see what he'll be able to do in the state of Georgia. And it's interesting because it's a crowded race, right? There's 3 GOP contenders that are running against him, but he really didn't seem to be focused on that at all. He was really focused on the fact that he's running for Georgia. He's focused on Georgia issues. He understands the national implications, but he's there to serve. And he also talked well about his colleague, right? Senator Raphael Warnock. He spoke about speaking. He spoke about speaking with him. He spoke about working on legislation alongside them. So he really showed that he was a team player as well in that aspect. And so it's really exciting to see what he has for the future of Georgia.
I raise that point, Mustafa, because, again, if we're talking about the U.S. Senate race in North Carolina, the U.S. Senate race in Ohio, in Maine, in Alaska, that's really what the focus has to be. Also, the race there in Texas, the race in Florida, all those places. And so it's one thing to cast your focus on Trump. But again, I think in order to connect with voters, it has to be, this is what the full 2 blocks away at 1600 Pennsylvania is doing to impact you in this state, in this county, in this city, in this school district, in this neighborhood, on your street, on your block, on your street, in your home.
Yeah, and I think he did that. It's really interesting when you spend time in Georgia. There are literally billions of dollars. He had mentioned about he didn't call it out, but it was the Community Change Grant, which was $19.8 million over there in Thomasville, Georgia. But it's one example of the billions of dollars that should be going to folks in Georgia to nonprofits and to other organizations that are on the ground doing the work. And by helping them to have an understanding that this administration literally took your tax dollars and took that money away from you is incredibly important. I know that he's been a champion also for energy-related issues. And now, there in Georgia, you've got folks whose electricity bills have doubled or tripled. So that's a homegrown type of thing. It's an issue that actually hits people's pocketbook. When they open up that mail, they can see the change that's going on. I like the way he wrapped around also and asked the question as he travels across the state, is your life better? And of course, the answer to that for the vast majority of people is no. So again, in your community, in your town, are things moving in a positive direction? When you're shutting down rural hospitals and it's so incredibly hard for them to be able to stay afloat as is, then that speaks to people now having to travel 50, 60, 70 miles sometimes to be able to get to healthcare. And we understand that, if there's a significant event and you're that far away from healthcare, you may lose your life or you may be damaged. So him being able to bring it back to those bread and butter issues that folks care about across the state of Georgia, whether in rural or in the urban communities, is incredibly important. And then, of course, that question of is your life better really is something that folks can think hard about.
The thing here, as I look at this, Joe, and when you talk about, again, how to win, when you start walking through by saying, you got this, and this is what this man took away, I think you have to lay those things out. And it drives me crazy when folk run, especially statewide, and they're not name-checking cities and towns and what's happening here, here, and here. And when I listen to these people yell tangibles, I always go, okay, what's your agenda? Give me the 5 or 6 or 10 issues, and now I want to see how the candidates/parties line up on those issues. See, Joe, I don't want to hear people who just throw out, what a check. Because first of all, you can't get a check before the election because there has to be an election. And then even if your person wins, let's say a House seat, you're going to need another 217 votes. If your person wins a Senate seat, you're going to need another 59 votes. And you're still going to need somebody in the White House to actually sign it. And so it's understanding the political process. So it's great to have people tickle your fancy, ignite your soul. That's wonderful. But the question is, how do you actually get it done? And I believe it's fundamentally important when somebody says, well, a lot of people, you sitting here, you bootlicking. Okay, hold up. By electing Warnock and Ossoff, what did black communities get? What did black rural towns get to fix infrastructure, You can't tell me a water system, an air quality, a hospital, a health center does not have an impact on black people. That's what I also call tangibles when you are voting, because you want to see those things in your community so your people can have a shot at life. And we're talking a lot of rural places in Georgia that are 50, 60, 70, 80% African American.
Yeah, I mean, there's good news here and there's bad news. The bad news is there's a whole lot of crazy stuff that has no business going on that's happening right now that's affecting people fundamentally. We're off in a war when he's supposed to be the war, the war avoiding president or the war preventing president or whatever you want to call it. Things are fundamentally more expensive. And even though, and here's the good news though, it should be crystal clear what your message actually is. Not only in terms of us advancing and doing better than we've been doing, better than we were doing 4 years ago, better than we're doing this year, better than we were doing last year. But here, this time around, Ossoff and everybody else that's running they're going to be able to talk about actually restoring what's missing right now, what they've lost in the last year and a half. There are some very, very tangible things that people used to have: a rural hospital, $3 a gallon gas. There's a whole lot of cheaper eggs. They like to joke about that, but there's a whole lot of things that people thought that at the very least they would be advancing from that they've actually lost. So we can be crystal clear about what the goals are, starting with restoring what's gone. And absolutely, they should run locally. We all know who Jon Ossoff is. That's part of the reason why he's on your show. But politics is local, and he needs to continue to do that because there are very tangible ways to demonstrate to people what they lost, how things are different, and to make the goals us moving forward there, starting off with restoring what it is that they have actually seen themselves tangibly lose, even in the last year, even in the last year and a half. He could do a chart saying, here's where prices were 2 years ago. Here's where prices were 6 months ago, and county to county, area to area, talk about things that have been lost in those areas, funding that has been lost, programs that have been lost, situations such as this. It is very easy and tangible to show people in hand, this is what you had in your hand, and now it's gone. And there is plenty of that. There's too much of it. It's bad news that there's a lot of it. But the good news is it should make it crystal clear in terms of being able to have the messaging be effective about understanding not only what people have lost, but how to get it back and how to take those steps.
See, this is the thing for me, Mustafa, that I just find to be utterly silly. So this person in our group chat, FBA Lex Vortex, we ain't concerned with impact that is general SMH. The man specifically mentioned a predominantly black town that had a grant that was going to create a health center in that town, and it had other elements to improve the lives of black people there. How in the hell is that general? That sounded mighty damn specific to me.
It was real specific to me also, especially since I've worked down in those areas. So I know those communities, and I know if somebody knows what they're talking about or not. I mean, I think we got to make sure that, sometimes we get so caught up in ideology, whatever that may be. And there probably are some benefits, to being able to operate that way, about how do we actually help our community? Who actually has done something, who has a platform and a set of results to be able to help us have a better understanding? Because, as Joe shared, in relationship to what we're talking about right now, it's really night and day between the folks who are running for this position. When you look at who's in favor of teachers, right, and teachers' pay, and making sure that they're no longer getting cut, and it's pretty clear because Ossoff, if you've done any type of research or listened to him speak, that he's been a champion for teacher pay. And we understand also in the areas that we were just talking about that there are a lot of black teachers. So when their pay is cut or when they're let go, then it impacts our community. It impacts generational wealth. When we talk about energy issues and we talk about environmental issues, we know environmental injustice, environmental racism is real. And who is actually willing to do something in that space? We know the people who currently, in the White House have cut and destroyed all those programs. So if we care about our people, then we've got to make sure that they can breathe clean air and drink clean water and have the infrastructure that's necessary so they're not walking around in human waste. If we want to talk about job creation, then that means that those resources need to come in both on the contracting side, coming in through grants. And we understand that, yes, we want to be able to create our own businesses. So we got to go with whoever is willing to actually make sure that they're funding and giving us the opportunity to get that stable sort of foundation underneath of us. If we want to talk about the things that are going on in relationship to the legal system, it's very clear who's actually fighting for our rights. That doesn't mean that they're perfect in that, and who would really like to see us be locked up and out of the way. And the last thing I'll say is, if we want to look toward the future, then we know who's actually going to put some regulations in place in relationship to AI data centers and making sure that those are no longer impacting our communities and driving up our electricity costs. Or if you're somebody who's also focused on the ICE detention centers, they're trying to put 100, I think they're trying to put 83 of those in Georgia right now. They've got 17 already. So we know that that's no benefit to our community, but some of our folks will get caught up and locked up. So we just got to make sure that we're really doing a true analysis of who actually can help us. That doesn't mean that we don't help ourselves. That doesn't mean that we don't run our own candidates. But we do have to make sure that in this moment, what's the best play in relationship for our folks?
See, Cooney, that is the thing for me. When I listen to these people, and they get so upset because I call them Simple Simons. Like, oh my God, he calls us names. Yeah, because I'm gonna call out stupid when I hear stupid. And when I hear people, when I hear people go, I hear them, I'm a FBA, I'm a Freedman, I'm B1, ADOS. Okay, I always go, okay, name your issues. Name them. Name them. Name 5, name 10. Now, if you say reparations is your only issue, okay, gotcha, it's your only one. But when I challenge them to name the issues, the next thing is, okay, the issues you name, let's see who lines up with your issue. And the reality is, Cooney, if I look at most of these issues, the fact is you're likely going to see more Democrats lining up on that issue than Republicans. But then these same yahoos go, oh, you buck dancing, they're shilling for the Democrats. Well, guess what, fool? Somebody's going to win. And if you're trying to actually achieve a policy win, you have to get it through somebody. There's no magical, mystical, unknown group of people out there who are elected who don't identify with either party. So if you want your tangibles, you're gonna have to get them through the existing system on the national level. Otherwise, I don't know what the hell y'all talking about.
You know that one of the tenets of politicking is we don't tell people to vote right or left. We just want them to vote based on factual information. And that's what we saw here, is somebody that was speaking facts. If we look at Senator Ossoff's record just in Senate, we see that he's built a reputation around oversight. He's built a reputation around bipartisanship and constituent-focused results. This is someone who knows the game, who's been playing it, who's done it in a bipartisan way. If you want to talk about parties, this is someone who knows how to work their way around the system. And this is someone that is running against 3 people that have proclaimed that they are MAGA Republicans. Not just Republicans, MAGA Republicans, which we know is a dog whistle for a Ku Klux Klan member. At least that's what I would say. So I think we have to be really, really, really clear on what we're actually trying to achieve here. If you want someone that has chaired the permanent subcommittee on investigations, that's led bipartisan probes, that's done legislative work, that's delivered federal resources to Georgia, that's focused on public safety and criminal justice reform, you just saw your candidate. If you're interested in someone that is defending the Iranian war, if you're interested in someone that has defended, human rights justices, then maybe you check into the other 3 MAGA Republicans that are running. But if you want someone that is actually running on principles of integrity, then I think you just saw your candidate. And I think that's for the voter to decide, Roland.
It just amazes me, Joe, when I listen to these yahoos yell and scream in their YouTube microphones and just spouting nonsense. And I'm just very, excuse me if I know how to count. I'm sorry. I know the landscape. This is very simple. And I want everybody listening to me right now, because I'm going to try to simplify this as easy as possible. And if this means going back to making this Schoolhouse Rock 2.0, so let me, and I'm going to say this slowly, so the simple Simons can understand what I'm saying. If you desire a tangible, in fact, did y'all pull? I need y'all to pull. I'm gonna do this here. Okay. Did y'all pull that quote from the National Action Network? Did y'all pull that video? Did y'all pull control room? Talk to me. Okay. All right. So here's what I'm gonna do. We're gonna pull that video. I'm gonna take a break and pull a video. Because I really need people to understand how this thing works. National, state, local. Because I think too many of our people are running around completely confused about politics and how things get done in politics. Not how in your fictitious mind how it works, how it actually gets done. So I'm gonna go to a break and I'll be right back on Roland Martin Unfiltered, the Black Star Network.
MAGA Republicans ended diversity programs, cut funding for Black students, and fired federal employees. And they won't stop there. Now, they've redrawn congressional maps so that they can rig the November elections. But we have the power to stop them. By voting yes for fair elections, we have the final say on who represents us in Congress. This is a temporary measure to restore fairness. They are not backing down, and neither can we. Make a plan to vote by April 21st and vote yes for fair elections.
Hey y'all, welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Rhea Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just two millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to The Other Side of Change.
Hey, I'm Malcolm Lee, and you're watching the Black Star Network.
Okay, folks. So y'all know we spend a lot of time really trying to help people out, to help them understand politics, to help them understand how things actually get done. And there was a clip I saw that was posted on the social media of a brother who asked this question. Matter of fact, I'm just going to go ahead and play it right here, y'all. Okay, all right. So listen to this. I just want y'all to just listen. Okay, so listen to this.
Briefly, we have to get going in one moment. Step up, tell us your name, and briefly, what's on your mind?
Hey, yo, as I look around this room, if you're 35 years old or younger, raise your hand. 4 people. So here's the thing. Y'all in trouble. Yesterday you had Al Green up here talking about we need a Secretary of Reconciliation, and then that's going to include what he said was reparations, which, by the way, wasn't reparations. Reparations is more than a check, but the very first thing it is a check. And come this year during the midterms and in 2028, if you don't have our check, you won't get no vote. No check, no vote. Yeah, I know that ain't what you want to hear, but that's what's happening. All of y'all in here, with all due respect, you're beautiful, but you're old. You're not talking to the youth. You don't know how to talk to the youth. You're trying to tell us what to do. We're not having it no more. So if you want our vote, you got to come with our paper. We're not scared of Trump. We're not scared of anybody. Biden is a racist. Trump is a racist. Kamala is a racist. And if you don't have our money, you don't get our vote. Yeah, not. Who are you? Oh, all right, yeah, so like I was saying, I'm going to land my plane right there, but the Democrats are no better than the Republicans. No check, no vote. Y'all take care. And somebody get my man a tissue. He need a tissue.
All right, so I saw that, and a couple of people actually posted that on their Instagram accounts. And I've asked a very basic question. How do you get a tangible before the election? You don't. You get a promise. Someone can say, this is what I'm going to advocate for if you elect me. Okay, so let's just say someone running for a House seat says that I'm going to advocate for you for that reparations check. Got it. What then happens if that person running is a Democrat? Because I haven't seen one Republican who supports reparations. What happens if that person loses? Who's advancing the issue? Now let me flip it. What happened if that person in your congressional race wins, but nationally Democrats don't win another 217 seats? That means that Republicans are in control of the U.S. House. Your bill will not even get to the floor. Okay. Let's say your person wins, and let's say Democrats win a majority of the House seats. Got it. You're going to need 218 people. So your person may say, power to the people, I support this. But you're going to need 217 more votes. And the other 217 votes don't come from all black districts or majority black districts. They don't. Okay, let's say your person wins, and let's say you do get 217 other votes. It now has to go to the United States Senate. You're going to need 60 votes. Right now, Republicans control the Senate. You ain't getting no check. Let's say Democrats win in November. And let's say they have a 51-49 lead, 51-49 majority. They're going to need 9 more votes to get to 60. Can you name me 9 Republicans who are going to support this issue? No, you can't. Let's say Democrats get to 53 votes. You're going to need 7 more votes. Can you name me the 7? No, you cannot. Because they don't support your issue. Okay, let's say your person wins the House. And they're Democrat, and Democrats control the House. And your person wins the Senate, and they control the Senate. So let's just say it gets 218 votes in the House and 60 votes in the Senate. Who then can sign or veto it? Donald Trump. What do you think he's going to do? It'll be a veto. This is what so many people don't understand. You can run for a school board seat and win, and you can lose every time. You know why? Because you don't have the votes. You got to count. When Ron Kirk was the mayor of Dallas, he always used to tell me, he's like, Roland, these people can hoot and holler all they want to. I know how to count votes. I know how many I need to get to be in the majority to win. He said, I got them in my pocket. And so, when somebody stands up at one of those forums and says that, sounds great. But there's a reality that has to actually take place. And that, to me, is the mistake, Joe, that so many people make when we're talking about politics. They act like their person can do whatever they want, and they can't. They act like you can get these things done. And again, I just want to ask people very basic and fundamental question. If you know Republicans are trash and then you're shitting on Democrats, please explain to me where is your constituency to get what it is that you want. I'll wait. And Joe, that's why Schoolhouse Rock 2.0 is so important. When they played that, how do you make a bill?
I'm just a bill.
We just got to be honest with people to understand how this stuff works.
Yeah, for sure. I remember taking my daughter in the 8th grade up to Capitol Hill when they were doing the 8th grade trip, and I set up a meeting with Pete Aguilar, and I'd been playing Schoolhouse Rock all her life and didn't know whether or not she was getting it. And we walked up the stairs, and it was that moment. She looked around and she said, this is it. This is I'm Just a Bill. And I'm Just a Bill talks about things passing in both houses. It talks about things going to the president and whether or not the president vetoes it and what has to happen. And so, you know, it's all laid out in the words. He hopes he becomes a bill. He hopes he becomes a law someday. He hopes and prays that he will, but today he's still just a bill. And so in order to be a bill that becomes a law, you need numbers. Okay, it's all about numbers. And so that attitude that was espoused from the brother is the reason why we lose national elections, despite having the issues and the numbers to actually win those elections. Some folks still coming out of a bag because they call Kamala the cop, because somebody was involved in being a prosecutor. Or because this person didn't show up on every issue the way they needed to show up. People that knew, I met Obama in 1996 in law school. He came and spoke one day. And he was very, very progressive in terms of what he wanted to do. But there's the practicality, whether you're talking about being in Illinois, where there's a whole lot more farmland than big cities, or whether you're talking about being in the United States Congress, and being president or being senator, et cetera. You got to understand how to count votes. You got to understand where votes come from. And you got to win in order to actually accomplish much of anything. And so when he lays this out and people go for that, now the only thing that you have assured is that you will lose and you will continue to lose. So you're going to stay mad. You're going to be broke or whatever it is that's got you mad. Nothing's going to change because you're not doing anything. Progressive people over the years, Maxine Waters, Ron Dellums, all those guys knew how to count votes. So you got to understand how to count and do what you need to do to win. And once you get power, then you do something with it.
And here's the deal, Winconi. What the brother said about there not being more young people in the audience, he's right. But the data also tells me this. The people that actually vote at the highest are people 65 older. The people
We
who
know
vote,
that, Roland.
but people who vote the least are 18-35. So he's absolutely right. Is he right about how we need to be engaging with young voters? He's absolutely right. But we also need people, regardless of their age, to understand how politics works. And the reality is, if you do not have the votes, if you do not have the power, if you do, you talk about House, who controls the House, who controls the Senate, Dems or Republicans. Okay, fine. Take politics out of it. Take party out of it. If you have a school board and you got 9 people and it's 3 of y'all who are supporting something and 6 against, that's simple math. You lose because you need 5. And I spend more time talking to people who somehow believe, Win Cooney, that there's this other thing out there, that there is this other mystical, mythical, political thing that exists in America where you can get stuff passed without Republicans or Democrats or without parties or without the existing political infrastructure. And I just sit here and I just look at people and I go, can you please share with me how you can get, and every time, I always say, Win Cooney, give me your issues. Tell me how you're going to get this passed in order for it to actually happen. And they go real quiet when I ask that real basic question.
Because at the end of the day, I think, Roland, people forget that America is, in fact, a democracy, meaning we have to vote for all of these things, right? As bad as the political climate is currently and has gotten, we still are a voting nation, right? So people can't just pass bills on a whim, like you mentioned, right? And as someone who is part of that age demographic that he mentioned, it's extremely concerning, right? Because I talk to a lot of my colleagues and my peers, and a lot of people don't understand, rudimentary things about the political process in this country. And that's why I think organizations like this organization, Black media, organizations like my own politics, we're the ones who are really trying to be on the front lines to teach this information, because unfortunately, it's not something that's even being taught in schools at this point, right, Roland? So we have to be really critical about that. But what this young man was saying, like you said, he had points. Yes. Does the old guard need to engage with young people? Absolutely. Do more people in my age group need to go out to the polls and cast a ballot? Yes. I think social media has gotten us into this analysis paralysis where people think that if they sit online all day and go back and forth on Twitter, that's actually going to achieve something. But what actually achieves something is voting. A lot of people don't know that baby boomers are the ones that are consistently making decisions in this country, and it's because they're the ones that are showing up at the polling precinct. So it doesn't matter if the older generation continues to die out. That doesn't matter if they're the ones who continue to show up at the polls. Young people, and I'm talking to myself right now, we need to make sure that every election we're casting an educated, informed vote. And the other thing about this young man's ideology that's wrong is the way to do it is to vote and then hold people accountable. You ask for something to get done, you touch head and agree with that candidate, and then you observe him for however long he's in office to see if he can get that done. And if he doesn't get it done, then you can vote him out. But like you said, you can't ask for something and expect to get it before Election Day. Unfortunately, that's called bribery, and it's illegal. So we gotta have people. We have to have them in the room to have those discussions, make those promises, make sure that those elected officials, once they get your vote, are earning that vote. But you got to make sure that they get into office first.
Well, and again, I need people to understand the difference between rhetoric and facts. So this same Yahoo, FBA, Lex Vortex, these people get paid to deceive you Negroes. Goddamn, wake up. Okay, FBA Lex Vortex, please explain to me again what we said that was factually incorrect. Matter of fact, Lex Vortex, we'll give you the phone number to call in. Do you want to get embarrassed? Because I will embarrass you publicly. See, this right here is what I'm talking about, y'all. See, I need people watching and listening to understand that there are people who say these things and they use a lot of words and they're very passionate and very emotional. And you're like, yeah, right on. Then you go, but did he or she say anything? No, they didn't. And I also want y'all to notice something. I want y'all to notice that all of the people who yell, holler, and scream, you bootlicking, you buck dancing, you shilling, y'all notice they always have lots of smoke for Democrats, but they ain't never got smoke for Republicans. Here's what I also notice. Why, if you believe, okay, so that brother said, Trump racist, Biden racist, Kamala, he didn't pronounce her name right. She was racist, they all racist. Okay. So, who's going to give you a check? What I'll say to every single person who's complaining about this and they're tossing names, why are you not organizing and mobilizing? No, I don't mean a rally. I don't mean a get-together. I'm talking about if you believe that you have a message to reach young voters, why are you not organizing and mobilizing them? Please show me the data. Please show me in what city you're doing this. Please show me how you are proactively engaged in the electoral process. I'll wait. But see, here's what I'm not going to do. I am not going to spend precious time yelling, hollering, screaming, sitting there foaming at the mouth about something, but I'm not offering people a pathway to actually get it done. And I fundamentally believe that unlike white people, unlike Latinos, unlike Asian Americans, unlike Native Americans, we got a whole bunch of loud, Simple Simon Negroes who love to spout things and love to yell and holler things. They ain't got no plan. They ain't got no action. Bumping gums is not a plan. Bumping gums is not a plan. And I'm telling you, if you let these folks gain root here, we'll be doomed. Because the facts are the facts. If you do not organize and mobilize people and drive them to polls, and when the election is over, you drive them to city council meetings, and school board meetings, and county commissioner meetings, and state house, and the federal, if you don't do any of that, everything that you claim you want as a tangible, you are guaranteed to never get because you never organized and mobilized. And if you are just spouting, hoping somebody else do it, then you're actually part of the problem because you're just talking while others are acting. When we come back, we'll talk about tragic story out of Louisiana. This one brother, he should be celebrating his first year in the NFL. Unfortunately, his parents are grieving his suicide after there was a car crash in Louisiana that they blamed all on him, and the details are not showing that's fully factual. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. If you want to contribute to us via Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here. That's for credit cards as well. Check some money order. Make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered. P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 2003 7-0196. PayPal's R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo RM Unfiltered. Zelle Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland and RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Back in a moment.
Why does it feel like we're going backward? Voting rights under attack, schools stripped of funding, Black history erased. This is the Trump MAGA agenda. They want to take us back. They are redrawing congressional lines in states across the country, deciding who gets power and who gets silenced. We see what this is, a power grab. Virginians won't be fooled. Show up, vote, take back our power. It's a temporary measure that gives the people, not politicians, the final say. Vote yes by April 21st.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Mark Morial, President and CEO of the National Urban League, and I'm watching the Black Star Network.
Folks, this month is the NFL Draft. It is a time when college football players and their parents are excited about the opportunities for them to be at the top of the food chain. Kyren Lacy was one of those young brothers last year who was expected to be one of the top picks in the NFL Draft. He was a star wide receiver at Louisiana State University. Yet an accident took place in Louisiana. December 2024. It was a fatal car accident that took place near his hometown in southeast Louisiana. Now, although he was not in either of the cars that collided, the crash resulted in the death of 78-year-old Herman Hall. Witnesses reported that Lacy had been illegally passing vehicles just before the accident, leading several to blame him for triggering the chain of events that caused the crash. Folks, the story went all across the country and the world. His name was plastered everywhere. Louisiana State Police issued an arrest warrant for Kyren Lacy, publicly alleging that he was responsible for vehicular manslaughter and that he fled the scene afterwards. As a result, Lacy was uninvited from the NFL Combine, and 4 months later, he took his own life. In the aftermath, further details emerged, revealing inconsistencies in the witness statements, blaming Lacy. An investigation by prosecutors concluded that he was not fully to blame for the crash. This past weekend, on the anniversary of Lacy's death, his family filed a lawsuit against the state police claiming that errors and bias in their investigation led to Lacy being publicly shamed, which contributed to his tragic decision to end his life. This follows the release of a new in-depth piece in Men's Health magazine that analyzes the case and details what transpired. The article was written by journalist Wesley Lowery, who joins us right now. Wesley, glad to have you here. So, I mean, I remember this story. And I remember when this happened. And we've seen numerous other stories and of athletes driving fast, speeding, shootouts taking place on highways. There was an NFL player that was involved in a massive accident in Dallas, and we've seen people, we've seen individuals that, I remember there was a couple of Cowboys who involved accidents, folks died, they went to prison. And so when this happened, folks were like, well, here we go, another one. What the hell was he thinking? Oh my God, dude, you're about to go to the NFL and earn millions, and now this happens, and then it blows up, and 4 months later, he commits suicide. Now we're learning a totally different deal. Walk us through what you discovered.
Of course. I mean, it's one of those tragic cases, and one of the things we learn and one of the things we know in the media as we've covered these stories over the years is that the public narrative often wants something to be black and white, right and wrong, villain and hero. Most of life is more complicated than that, right? Very few stories can be litigated. This person is all wrong, this person is all right. There's some stories like that, right? And so what we end up seeing in a case like this is you had all of these bad facts, right? Yes, Kyren Lacy is a big LSU star wide receiver. He is someone who is driving around town in his big Dodge Charger, lime green. He's speeding, he's passing cars, he's doing these other types of things. What happens is that the moments after this crash, when the police arrive, all the witnesses are going, it was all the fault of the Charger, right? It was that guy, we don't know where he was, but there was this Charger, he was passing everyone. What happens very often, the late Johnny Cochran used to talk about this, is that sometimes what happens when the police get something wrong is not that they set out that day to wake up and say, we're gonna go blame a black guy, but that they encounter a theory of the case and then they try to fit all the evidence into that theory. Right? That they start with the narrative and then they go looking for evidence to support it.
And what also happens is the public immediately believes what the cops say. Exactly. So, and we've seen it where they do have an agenda and they know how the public's gonna perceive it. So it's as if whatever the cops say initially, oh, that is it, that's the gospel. As if there can be no errors at all, and we know that is not the case.
And beyond that, once the cops say something, they institutionally have no incentive to correct the record, right? They are now out loud and wrong. They're not gonna go, oh wait, never mind, that opens them up to liability, it undermines their potential case in the future. So what happened in this case, right? And it's a little complicated because it's about driving and roads and all, but Kyren Lacy, he's on a two-lane road down in the South, in states like Louisiana and Texas. We've all been on roads like this, long and winding. Some places you can pass, other places you can't. He's in a place where he's not supposed to be passing everybody, but he whips his car, jumps in front of 4 different cars, so he ends up speeding up to about 80, 88 miles per hour in what is a 40 or 50 mile per hour zone. In front of him, there's the car coming in the lane towards him that he is in its lane for a while, but then he gets back over. There's a pickup truck driver, an old black man who has just picked up his brother from the hospital. He slows down, in part because he sees Kyren in his lane, but also because he's going to pull off the road, right? He's going to pull off into this parking lot and do these other things. Behind that driver is a woman, a 29-year-old black woman who is, we later find out, listening to music, eating chips out of her pocket, who's following this pickup truck driver a little too quickly. So when he slows down, she, realizing she's about to rear-end him, veers into the oncoming traffic, head-on collision with somebody, and that is the car where someone died. And so again, Kyren Lacy's car is not actually physically involved. The legal argument was that he started the chain of events that led one car to slow to another car to hit a third car.
Because initially, how it was described, Kyren Lacy caused this accident.
And part of the reason was, and we've seen this, not because the police released it, although they have since released it, but because Kyren Lacy's attorney ended up putting out some information. This is now after he takes his life, unfortunately. But we start to see in the police body camera video what happens when the police officers arrive. And when the police officers arrive, one of the witnesses, a driver who had been one of the cars who Kyren had just sped past, is loud and wrong, right? He comes in, he says, I saw the whole thing, it was this Dodge Charger, and he lays out a scenario that made it sound like it was a move out of the Fast and the Furious. Like Kyren had split these cars and then they crashed into each other. We know definitively that's not what happened. But that is the first witness who the police hear from, and so they begin their investigation trying to prove the narrative that the green Charger was at fault, that it was somehow directly involved in the case. What we later see, because again, you have to remember, this car accident happens 70 feet in front of Kyren. He has no reason necessarily to believe it has anything to do with him. It's the car in front of him that ends up in a car accident. He slowly approaches the scene and then drives around it. Now, what we know, as we mentioned in the tease, right? The police came out and they charged Kyren. They said the vehicular homicide was his fault, that he fled the scene because he drove around and kept going. But they also said, right, and because this is where objective facts can turn into public narrative character assassinations, right? You can say a bunch of things that are accurate, but might not be complete. The police also said, well, and the first thing Kyren Lacy did was he called an attorney, right? The narrative they were building was he caused this accident, he knew he caused this accident.
Attorney, he was guilty.
Yeah, and he knew it, right? And so, which is why he should have stayed and he should have. What we learn later is that attorney was his stepfather, who he speaks to every day, who handles his endorsement deals. It's a week and a half before the NFL draft. What I find out when I'm having my conversations is that Kyren Lacy didn't initially call the attorney. He initially called his father, who he also talks to every day. And he's calling to talk about something else. And then he goes, hey, Dad, something crazy just happened. Actually, there was just this accident on the road I just saw. I'm wondering if I should have stayed and tried to help them. And Kyren's dad goes, call your stepfather. You know, he's an attorney. These two men are close. They've kind of co-parented. They know each other. He goes, call your stepfather on that. It doesn't sound like you should have stayed. You didn't have anything to do with it. Calls his stepfather who says, wait, so you weren't really involved in this directly? Well, look, Kyren, if there was blood in something, would you have been able to do something? Kyren's like, I don't like blood. So he goes, well, no, there's nothing you could have done. You did nothing wrong, right? And so this phone call that is this young man speaking to his father and his stepfather that was just innocuous in the public becomes moments after causing this car crash by recklessly driving, killing a 78-year-old Marine veteran. And to be clear, it's a tragedy that Herman Hall was killed, right? He then calls an attorney. Well, we know it was a stepfather now, right? And so what we saw again is this space between the public record, the objective facts that the police or the prosecutors can put out, and then what is actually true, and how that begins to weigh on someone in this public sphere.
And you talk to his family, you talk to others, and if they lay out, I mean, just the pain he endured because it was being talked about on blogs, on social media, on sports talk shows. It was everywhere. He gets disinvited. I mean, this is a young man who was expected to be a first-round draft pick. Yes. We're talking about you're going to sign a 5-year contract. It's going to be millions upon millions of dollars. You're going to be, you're going to be seen as the savior of some NFL franchise, and you go from that a week and a half before that happens to spiraling out of control.
I remember when I was talking to this, because when you do a magazine piece like this, you talk to a whole bunch of people who don't end up in the piece, right? But as part of it, I was talking to as many people as I could who themselves were black men, public figures who had been through some type of Scandal, disgrace. I talked to Kwame Kilpatrick about this. I talked to a woman, Dana London in Chicago, who works with former athletes. And one of the things, I was talking to several prominent activists who've had their ups and their downs, and one of the things someone said to me that I haven't forgotten, is that it's hard to understand the loneliness of fame sometimes, right? That you can never, I do have the line in the piece where it says, you know, few of us will ever carry the burden of almost making it to the NFL, which makes it impossible for us to understand what it must feel like to lose that. To be this young man from Thibodaux, Louisiana, from two black teen parents who did the best they could for him. This is a well-raised child, right, young man, but who's standing at the precipice after years of hard work, putting your body, again, it's not casual to just end up about to be going to the NFL. Discipline and hard work, to then have that snatched away, but then secondarily to experience the character assassination that comes with that, right? As a young black man, you grow up thinking about all the things you don't want to be. You're not gonna be a thug, you're not gonna be a killer, you're not gonna prove everyone right. Now this is a kid who, I mean, he's a kid, he's driving around, he's speeding, I'm sure he's gotten in whatever type of trouble, but had taken all of these steps to ascend out of this. And now at that last moment at the goal line, for, you know, forgive the metaphor, right? It's not only taken away, but now there's a massive international public narrative that he's a killer, that he's a thug, that he's remorseless, that all he cared about was calling an attorney and getting himself out of trouble, when in reality, his parents were telling me, he was heartbroken about this. He's losing, a man died in a car accident he was involved in. All these people think I'm a killer. His girlfriend's telling me about how he won't go outside. They have to order groceries because he won't leave the house for months. And so I think, I understand, you know, we live in a moment of, rightfully, of an accountability culture where we ask people to own up to things they do, where we expect just because you're rich or famous or wealthy that doesn't mean you get away with things. But I do think we sometimes forget, especially with these young people who are 23, 24, who, yes, they're public figures, they're famous in some type of way. We forget the weight that rests on them with all of this vitriol and schadenfreude, that there are real people behind these headlines, and that in this social media world, especially the young people who've grown up on social media, right? Who forget that you can go outside and live in the real world. That's their life, that's their name, that's their reputation. And all they see and hear is all these people throwing dirt on it, and that just becomes overwhelming, and they feel like they can't escape it.
Questions from our panel. Joe Richardson, you first.
This is just so tragic, just on so many levels, and I'm, of course, very interested to see what's going to happen, because, of course, the defense to the case is probably going to be the big C word, causation. And so how is his family doing? I mean, there's no good answer to this. When you lose somebody before what you think their time should be, which I understand, they're just unrecoverable. And is there something that they want to do? I know they're doing this lawsuit, et cetera, and I hope that they succeed. But is there something that they want to do, or that they've talked about in terms of saying, here's something that we could do that's in our hands going forward, that'll give us some solace going forward, so that he did not die in vain?
Those are great questions. So to start off, first of all, they've started the K2 Foundation, which is doing work around mental health and working with young athletes. I visited them in Thibodaux around Thanksgiving. They did a turkey drive. And so they're really working on trying to build out programming in Kyren's legacy around these exact issues. But your question about how the family's doing, I think, is really interesting because, I got to spend a lot of time talking to them and working with them. Again, parents who are not together, but a family that really still is a unit around him. And it was interesting seeing the nuances and complexities about how some of the black men in the family were doing versus some of the black women, how they were doing, and how we all know within our communities how gender factors into how we process things, what we'll talk about, what we feel open about. And so Kyren's mother is extremely poised, church woman in the choir, and is a high school counselor. She's very therapied. She lost her father to taking his own life back when she was a teenager, when she was a child. As a teen, Kyren was her firstborn. She was a teenage mother. She worried about whether or not she was going to finish high school. Now she's gone on and get higher degrees and is working professionally. Really remarkable woman. But you could see through the time we've spent together, talking to each other in a sense on the phone, texting, right? She's very poised and she's very put together. But you can see how she's doing that because she's carrying it with the strength of a mother, right? You can see the way this is tearing at her. it's been interesting for her ex-husband, for Kyren Lacy, Kyren's father, who his reactions in some ways publicly have been more public and almost more emotional, right? He's online on Facebook posting about how much he misses his son. He's getting in fights with the comment. He's doing that thing where he's like, I gotta defend my son in this way, right? And so just seeing the ways, again, very often where black men, we're not always equipped with the language to grieve, to talk about all of these things. Black women very often end up being kind of the foundational solid rocks in our family units. And I remember talking to Kyren's mother and with his father as well, also about not only his younger siblings, his brothers, and not his cousins, but also the group chats of all his former teammates. Plenty of his teammates are now in the NFL. They're still playing on Saturdays in college football. And how all of these young men have now lost one of their best friends, and it's this kind of this ricochet of all of these young black men, not just black men obviously, but this was a young black man from a black community, right? And so it's opened the door for a lot of conversation about what does it look like for us, first of all, before something tragic like this happens. What does it look like for someone like Kyren to understand you don't have to be perfect, you can make mistakes just because the media says something about you, that doesn't mean that's what we think about you here at home. What would it have looked like if he could have felt like he had more space to process in those ways? And then how, at the very least, can this spur some of those conversations with the people in the communities around him?
When this went down, before I go to Winnacunny and Mustafa, when this happened, did LSU provide any mental health services? Was he getting any help, or was he having to deal with this all on his own?
So he had received some services. Now, again, it kind of fell in a unique moment. His senior season was over. So what we know, those of us who follow college sports, right? If you are a big deal college athlete, someone who's going to go pro, once your senior season ends, you're functionally not a student anymore. You're off campus, you're working out, you're getting ready for the NFL draft,
Well, some people actually withdraw, others don't.
Correct. And so my understanding is he had functionally completed his classes. He was off campus. Now, LSU had provided some services. They had provided some services even previously. I know he had talked to a therapist on campus through athletics, even prior to this case. He was talking to a therapist throughout this, right? Kyren, in many ways, was resourced. And the reason I actually make a point to think about that, right, because it would almost be easier if it was a story where we could go, and no one helped this man. No one was reaching out. No one was Kyren was surrounded by a family that loved him. He had friends. He had two parents active in his life. He had enough resources that he had a therapist. And even then, the weight can be that heavy, right? I think that sometimes when we have these mental health conversations, it becomes too, whether it's too casual or not sophisticated. Well, all right, let's just get him a therapist. That'll be all right. All right, we'll take him to the pastor. That'll be all right. Well, let's start the group text, and where what we know is if you yourself have been through a mental health crisis or have worked with people who struggle with depression, it comes in waves. It's cyclical. You can have all the resources in the world. You can be surrounded by all the people in the world and still feel like you're alone, right? And it seems very clear that that was a component of what happened here. So just to say, then there's been some back and forth about it, but, I talked to Kyren's mother. She was pretty insistent that, look, everyone's got some criticism for a big team like LSU, right? But that all things considered, she thought he had received adequate care and help from them, and that they had really tried to look out for him. But this was also out of their control.
Winnacunny.
Wesley, first of all, beautiful story. What drew you to tell Kyren's story, and why did you feel like this was specifically important to tell in Men's Health?
Of course. Well, so this was the type of story that, me as a journalist and also obviously Roland and the team at Black Star Network, right, are always looking for these stories of black men and black women who, one thing that we know to be true, and I've said this many times, right, black people, even our scandals, we don't get our stories told fully. Even when we get taken down in public or even when something tragic happens, right, those stories, we don't even get the hit pieces done well, right? And our big pieces, our victories aren't told well, right? And so because of that, I'm always looking for stories where it feels like there's more here, there's more complexity here, there's something else here. And also, frankly, as a black reporter, as a black journalist, that if I show up and knock on the door, we might be able to have a real conversation in a way that maybe other journalists might not have done, or that others just forgot about. They moved on, right? And so I've been following this story a little bit, and then an editor who I've worked with at Men's Health reached out as well because he was seeing it everywhere. What happened as this played out was there were these kind of several moments of virality around the story, right? There's the accident that happens in December of 2024. Kyren announces that he's going to the draft. Then in early January of last year, the police announced they're going to charge him, right? So that's the big moment, right? And now you have this period of time between January and April where everything's just floating, everything is just sitting, and then Kyren ultimately takes his own life in April. Following that, Nicholls State University in his hometown in Thibodaux, they live streamed, they held his funeral. At his funeral, it was just a parade of many of these young black men, his teammates, some of his coaches, his parents, speaking about what this had done to them. And the editor reached out to me and said, my feed is full of these clips, and it still feels like no one's really gotten at this story and done this. And so we were talking about that was around this time last year. Talked about it a little bit. Things were still a little too fresh. Couldn't quite get to the family, couldn't quite figure it out. And then last fall, Kyren's legal team began releasing some of the additional evidence, right? Because still up to that point, even months after Kyren had lost his life, the only story in the public was the police version of the story, right? Which again, was not I will say, my journalistic opinion, this is not a case necessarily of a police cover-up, of a police lying. It's not black and white like that. It's the police ripping away context and nuance and complexity to paint too clear of a picture when the picture's not actually clear, to call someone guilty who maybe isn't, right? Most car accidents are not, in fact, convictable crimes, right? Even if something tragic happens. And so as Matt Ory, the local attorney who represents Kyren's family, began releasing some of this information, it became very, very clear to me there was much more here. And so now I was looking and thinking about my skill sets. I've got a lot of background covering policing investigations. I'm very comfortable with this type of evidence and these legal issues. And also I'm very comfortable talking my way into the home of a black family and really trying to empathize with them and understanding them. And so to me, it felt like the perfect story for those reasons. And then beyond that, this connection, this intersection of, we talk about not just the male loneliness epidemic, but men's mental health issues. We talk about the silent epidemic among black men, where the racialized dynamics of that, while men we know are not particularly good at seeking mental health treatment, that black men specifically often feel as if we have to carry a particular burden as it relates to that. The idea of our sports culture, this was someone who was a public figure and they were famous, so therefore there's no empathy for him, we can beat up on him, we can make these jokes. And then law enforcement, the idea of a rush to judgment or an incompletion, all of those things just felt like they were in my wheelhouse and they felt like they were primed for more exploration.
Mustafa?
Yeah, well, thank you for the authenticity of the story. And of course, we know that Black youth are the highest now with suicide. So we should make sure that we pull that forward. I just want to focus on this one point very quickly. Whether you want to call it media or cyber lynching, it's a significant problem now in our society. All the work that you've done, and of course with this story, are there any solutions, any steps that can be done to help to minimize or to sort of mitigate some of this cyber lynching that often goes on?
So I think there's a few elements there, and I think it's a great question. Again, first of all, we know this is not going to be any secret to viewers here or anyone on the panel, right? We know that people of color, black men and black women, we know often that our institutions don't treat us fairly, whether that is law enforcement, prosecutors, media institutions, the public square writ large, right? And so we know that in an era of public shaming, of cancellation, we know that disproportionately we are going to see black men and women facing this. What I would add to that, right, I think about this very often being a millennial, where I'm in the kind of straddle generation. I was fully alive and cognizant at a time before the internet, before the social public square, but I'm also digitally native, right? No one actually explained to me how to use my phone. I think about my younger brothers who aren't that much younger than me, but who are younger than me, who grew up in these spaces, who had Twitter accounts and Facebooks when they were in middle school and high school, right? Who their online avatar, their online reputation, their online community is in some ways to them just as important as their real life community, right? There's again, not to make light of it, there's an old viral, I want to say Tyler, the Creator tweet where he talks about, how are you getting cyberbullied, just log off, right? And that's comical in that way, but we think about this idea that we have young people who this all really matters to them, right? That they don't understand that, Kyren, it doesn't matter what the trolls are saying to you or the people in the comments are saying to you. You live here with us. You're safe. It's very hard to tell someone going through a crisis that. It's very hard to tell someone whose character is being questioned that. And so I think we have to remember this in this moment of our political polarization, of our digital world, of our high-end combat, that people behind the headlines are real people, right? And that there are real, actual psychological, emotional damage that can happen to themselves, to their families, based on that trolling comment you are sending on their Instagram, that they are waking up first thing in the morning in their own bed, and it feels like the person's in the room with them, calling them a killer, saying X, Y, and Z to them, right? Again, those of us who do this publicly, we develop thick skins, but I'll happily admit there are plenty of times where I get in a fight with someone on Twitter and I'm upset about it for a day, or so-and-so says something about me or X, Y, and Z, right? We know that even though it's our jobs to perform this in public, very often there are real psychological, emotional damages here. And so when we start talking about our black men and black women who gain this prominence young, in their teens, in their 20s, we have to remember, look, 24, which is as old as Kyren was, that is old enough to be held responsible for decisions you make, right? He would have faced some civil liability. It was a mistake he made in public. But the fact that he didn't believe this was something he could live through, he didn't believe it was going to end, he didn't believe he could get out of it, that is so disproportionate to what was true. And I think that's an indictment of us collectively, societally, that we've created a world where our young men and our young women believe that if they commit a misdemeanor, they're going to get a death sentence. And I think that's something we all have to think about.
Folks, check out the piece on Men's Health. Go ahead and pull it up, please. Right there. What happened to Kyren Lacy by Wesley Lowery. Wesley, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Folks, we come back. We will have Black Star Network headlines. More to talk about, plus our Shop BlackStarNetwork.com segment. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Virginia, we are counting on you. Republicans want to steal enough seats in Congress to rig the next election and wield unchecked power for 2 more years. But you can stop them by voting yes by April 21st. Help put our elections back on a level playing field and let voters decide, not politicians. This is the responsible thing to do. Help us chart a better path forward, Virginia. Vote yes by April 21st.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
Hey, I'm TD Jakes, and you are watching the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, the Save America Act appears to be failing in Congress, but 23 predominantly Republican-led U.S. states have recently altered their voting procedures to reflect key elements of Donald Trump's extensive package of voting restrictions in preparation for the November midterm elections. In Maryland, lawmakers passed a voting rights bill in the final days of the 2026 legislative session that could allow Governor Wes Moore to revisit congressional redistricting. Now, it died in the Senate. This comes after he was unable to, again, secure approval for redrawing the maps during this session. Over the weekend, House of Delegates approved voting rights legislation aimed at preventing all counties and local municipalities from engaging in vote dilution during elections. The measure was introduced as an emergency bill, meaning that if it passes in the Senate and reaches the governor's desk, it will become law immediately upon the governor's signature. Folks, in June of 2024, 17-year-old Ekamshion Wilkins was shot in the back of the head as he ran away from police trying to arrest him. At the time, the officer said the teen had a gun, but the newly released body cam video contradicts that. Here's a Facebook post from 2024 detailing what happened. Around 1 p.m. on June 18th, Anti-Crime Task Force detectives attempted to stop a stolen SUV after spiking the vehicle. And a brief tactical pursuit, 2 suspects bailed and ran from officers near Whittier and Moffett. During a foot pursuit, an armed suspect turned and pointed a gun at officers when the detectives shot the armed suspect. A second armed juvenile was taken into custody and not injured. A third individual in the rear seat was in the SUV and complied with officers. No officers were injured. But here's the actual body cam footage, folks. There's no audio during the first 30 seconds of the video. And we're going to start the video as soon as the body cam audio comes on. Now, we want to warn you, we're about to show you is quite disturbing.
Recording. Get on the fucking ground now! Drop that fucking gun! Drop that fucking gun! Shot fired, shot fired, shot fired. Give me your hand. Fuck. Okay. Whittier and that, yeah, shots fired. Fucking here. Shots fired by who? We started. I need to get that. What? Give me address. 619 in the rear. We have both in custody. Driver's in custody. Driver. Is everyone okay? All officers are accounted for, unharmed. Subjects down in the rear, 4219. I'm in route. Dispatch to anti-crime. Is everything okay? Do you need the district to respond? Right now, everything is okay. Just the EMS up there. Hey, come here. Me, I did. Okay. Right there. Yes, sir. We'll start EMS. Do you need the district? Okay. In still pocket, so right there. How many times did he hit? 2 or 3. I think 3. Hey, I think we're good right now. We'll keep you posted. Senator, you want to contact that 5 years? Yeah, I'm doing that currently. Yes, sir, we're going to start EMS. And is this police involved shooting? Affirmative. All police officers are accounted for and healthy. We have 1 suspect down. That is clear. We are in Massive. We'll start EMS. The district's not needed at this time at 1314. Jim, give me the address one more time. I'm going to let Major know as well. 4221 Massive. 4221 Massive. Sir, 4221 Massive. EMS is en route at 1314.
All right, folks, to begin, start the video again at the top, again, before I go to the panel, and play it again. I just want to see the first 20 seconds. Go.
Recording. Get on the fucking ground now! Drop that fucking gun! Drop that fucking gun!
Now, folks, the name of the officer who killed him has not been officially released, but he's still on the force. The family attorney, Albert Watkins, obtained the video as part of the discovery process in a federal lawsuit against the police department. He was supposed to join us tonight, but something came up. We'll try to get him on later this week. St. Louis Police Department released a statement saying, "We recognize that the use of deadly force is difficult for everyone involved and for the community. We are committed to being as transparent as possible, even in dynamic and rapidly evolving situations. In the early stages of this investigation, detectives with the Force Investigations Unit determined that information provided by a third party to investigators in the immediate aftermath of the incident was not consistent with the actual events or what was initially shared with the community. The involved officers' statements were consistent with the findings of the investigation. Following the June 18, 2024 shooting, internal protocols were updated to better position the SLMPD to provide accurate and timely information. A member of the department's body-worn camera unit now responds directly to the scene so that footage can be reviewed by investigating commanders before detailed public accounts are provided. In this case, an earlier review of body-worn camera footage would have provided greater clarity than what was available in the initial moments following the incident. These updates reflect best practices moving forward and help ensure that early information shared with the public is grounded in verified evidence. This case remains under review by the Circuit Attorney's Office, and we will continue to respect that process. Here's what I don't understand, Joe. Again, and we have shown way too many of these videos. Why are you firing at somebody who's running away? Nowhere in that video do you see this young man turning and pointing a gun. He's running away. Why are you firing at somebody running away?
Right, you're firing at somebody running away. And then you seem to be very, very certain that somehow he's got a gun, and he's got a gun that's pointed at you. Now, it's really pretty arrogant because, you know, they don't provide the body-worn camera when they're supposed to as part of the public record search. And I guess they just thought that they would just go on forever and ever in litigation, and this would never have to be provided. At some point prior to them getting this body-worn camera in discovery, they knew that they had told a lie. They knew it. They knew it, and I would submit to you, I bet you dollars to donuts, they knew it moments after it happened, because it wasn't too long before they looked at it and understood what was going on. But meanwhile, back at the ranch, you keep hiding, you keep being less than transparent. The body-worn camera is the body-worn camera, man. And even their little statement made it seem like, oh, we've got a way to do it better next time. Here's how you do it better next time. You release that doggone thing right away, or at the very least, when it's requested in a public record search, when someone is supposed to get it. If we'd done that, then we all know that you were lying then. You don't have to lie. Here's the tape. Here's what we're going to do it. And to be honest with you, they have every reason to be hopeful because, hell, we won't even know that they would have been convicted anyway, regardless of this situation. And I give you 10 to 1. I don't know that there's for sure going to be a criminal conviction at all. There's going to be a civil case for sure. So once again, we've got a situation where it doesn't look like they're in imminent danger that they say that they are, or at the very least, they're not telling the truth and being transparent about what's actually happening. So now, now we've caught you in this lie, we've caught you in this lie. Now you're going to tell the truth and we're supposed to believe it? This is why you can't make withdrawals of goodwill when you don't have deposits. This is why there's problems between the people and the police, because even the body-worn camera is hidden. I've got cases like this right now. Body-worn camera is hidden. People say they lost what was particularly important, but they've got everything else, but not what it is that you actually need. It is absolutely crazy. Once again, another live loss when it didn't have to be.
I say numerous times, Mustafa, I don't understand how in your department, if you just let people just fire away at somebody who's running away. It makes no sense to me. That there's nothing in that video that says this person was a threat to the officers.
Right. I agree with everything Joe said. I would just add, if we want to do things better, stop shooting people in the back of the head. I mean, that's the ultimate beginning for me. When you have trust and you continue to break trust, which I know this police department didn't have trust because I know some other things that have happened there before, you just completely ruin it. I mean, how can communities trust you if you say one thing and then the video shares a completely different story? So once again, another young black man killed. There's a cover up, or at least it looks like there's a cover up. And then, his family has to deal with all the pain the loss, and everything else that goes with that. And eventually there has to be some accountability, not just for these police officers. And, you know, we've talked about this numerous times, that everybody shouldn't be a police officer, because it's not for everybody. But we also got to have accountability up the chain, because nothing is going to change until others know that they are going to be held accountable and that there will be repercussions for the changes that are not happening inside of their respective departments. Now, as I close, I'll just say, I know that being a police officer or someone's working in law enforcement is not easy, but that's why you have to be held to a higher standard, and that's why you got to have people who are prepared for the difficulty.
Rinconi?
You know, I'm deeply saddened in this moment. I don't know how many videos of this, more videos like this we can really watch. I've not been in the police academy, gentlemen, but one thing I do know is that the training definitely does not submit that you fire on people who are fleeing, right? Certainly if they're not waving a weapon at you. So I think what we're seeing here is a cover-up by the St. Louis Police Department. Let's call it plain English what it is. This is a cover-up. When the attorney asked for the body cam, he was denied it. He actually had to file a federal lawsuit against the police department to get this body cam footage. I've had cases where I've asked, hey, we can request body cam footage. When they requested it, they were denied it. They had to file a federal case to get this. This is actually withholding information. This is actually illegal. If someone were to do this that was not the police department, they would be thrown in jail. So we really have to call it what it is. This is yet another setup, cover up by the police department. Then we got to get to the point where I know everybody likes to, make these young men into adults. This was a 17-year-old boy. 17, no criminal priors. Okay, maybe he got into a little trouble. Did he deserve to die over it? No. Even if there was a stolen SUV reported, that does not engender a situation in which you can take a life. For me, when I looked at these police officers, I saw someone who was firing like they were at a firing squad, not someone who was trying to de-escalate a situation, not someone that was trying to protect the community. Those were homes that they were firing into. You know, those other 3 bullets could have gone anywhere, and unfortunately, one went into the into the head of young Ameshawn Wilkins. But this is really not how this particular story had to end. The SUV was only going 10 miles per hour. This is a gentleman that could have been apprehended and handled the right way, whether that been a criminal court case, etc. It did not have to end with his body shot down in St. Louis in that way. It's a travesty.
Indeed, indeed. All right, folks, quick break. We come back, shopblackstarnetwork.com.
MAGA Republicans ended diversity programs, cut funding for Black students, and fired federal employees. And they won't stop there. Now, they've redrawn congressional maps so that they can rig the November elections. But we have the power to stop them. By voting yes for fair elections, we have the final say on who represents us in Congress. This is a temporary measure to restore fairness. They are not backing down, and neither can we. Make a plan to vote by April 21st and vote yes for fair elections.
This is Bill Duke, and you're watching the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, of course, our shopblackstarnetwork.com website features a variety of Black-owned companies and their products. You name it, we've got it. And so, of course, we want you all to be sure to go to the site and check it out. All right, let's talk about today. As a teenager, my next guest began creating her own all-natural skincare product to address her struggles with eczema, acne, and extremely dry skin. And by the time she reached college, she was selling these products. Now she runs a successful company called Buttered Body Care, specializing in moisturizing products for ultra dry, sensitive, and melanated skin. Brittany Bygrave joins us right now. Brittany, glad to have you here. So, so what were you doing? Were you playing around with a chemistry set and you were like, yo, I'm not finding some stuff that really helped me out? And so how did this just come about?
Yeah, great question. I think we can all think back to the YouTube era where we're all DIYing everything and figuring out how to make our own skincare, hair care, all of the things. And that's where my curiosity really grew when it came to ingredients and products and figuring out what actually worked for my dry skin.
All right. And so you were how old when you first started? You first made your first product, your guinea pig item.
You're taking me down memory lane. I'm gonna call 12, 13 years old, where I was in my mom's kitchen in New Jersey, just having fun.
Now, was your mom
playing in
going,
her
what the hell are
appliances.
you doing in my kitchen?
No, my mom is really supportive. I'm the only child, pretty creative, so she really supported me every step of the way.
And then all of a sudden, this thing just began to build and build. And when did it really turn into a business?
Yeah, so build and build. I was doing it for myself for a pretty long time, all through high school. And it wasn't until I got to college where I discovered, like, oh, this actually could be a business. And I started learning about structure, of course, selling, marketing. I actually changed my major to entrepreneurship at North Carolina A&T, graduated with a degree, and fully kind of pursued it after I graduated.
Okay, so I'm sitting here looking at buttered hyper mango body glaze. Then I have very vanilla body glaze, and then the buttered Helly Jelly Skin Jelly. Explain us these three.
Yes, I'll start with Helly Jelly. That's going to be our best seller. It's a kind of a plant-based alternative to petroleum. So it's infused with castor oil, aloe vera, vitamin E, and it's pretty multi-purpose. You can use it all the way from your hair as a hair grease to the cuticles on your fingernails. And of course, you're going to be moisturized. It's pretty well known because it's the exact, or if not similar texture to petroleum, which we all know and love from generations to come. So people love it for that reason. And then Hyper Mango Body Glaze is a great layering to that. This moisturizer is going to be pretty lightweight. Again, all of our formulas are multi-purpose, so you can use this on your hair, on your back, on your legs, on your arms, anywhere that's dry, you're going to get that extra hydration. Hyper Mango is going to have that light mango scent, perfect for spring. And similar to Very Vanilla, similar texture, and of course, a different smell. Very Vanilla is going to be a little bit more potent for those vanilla lovers out there.
Questions from the panel. Winnacuna, you first.
Yeah, I was curious as to, first of all, this is phenomenal. I was curious as to why you guys decided not to use petroleum jelly in any of these products.
Yeah, through my research, I found that petroleum never really worked for my skin. And discovering why, it turns out petroleum doesn't really hydrate your skin. It acts as a added layer on top of it, which is interesting. So you think you're moisturized, but no, you're just feeling the petroleum. And a little bit deeper into my research, I found that petroleum is a non-renewable source. So it's not biodegradable, it's not renewable at all. So if we're using plant-based ingredients, it's going to be naturally better for our environment. And petroleum, lastly, has been connected to some cancers. If the ingredient is not refined correctly and deeply, and by the way, that process is not regulated to even know how much refining actually needs to happen, it has been connected to a chemical connected to some cancers. So some people just opt to just have a cleaner, kind of holistic alternative altogether that works just as well, if not better.
Thank you.
Mustafa.
Do you do your own manufacturing? And if so, what does that look like?
Yes, so we manufacture in Landover, Maryland. I have a small team of 4 currently helping me do all things from manufacturing, production, fulfillment. Of course, all Black owned, led, created. We really are in the kind of wheelhouse of making sure we're keeping the business healthy and supported in that way.
All right, Joe.
Congrats, great products here. A couple questions. Do all of the products that you use have some kind of element where it's environmentally friendly or plant-based or something like that? I imagine maybe that's part of the goal. And then the next question becomes, do I start off with the most popular product like the non-petroleum jelly, or what does someone start with when they want to support your product and get their feet wet?
Yes, I'll start with your kind of second question. Helly Jelly is going to be the product you fall in love with initially, and then you're going to find layering the body glazes, as I just spoke to, is going to be a next level experience when it comes to adding that fragrance that you love, adding that other layer of moisture when you do have those winter seasons come about. Helly Jelly is amazing, of course, as a base, but of course, as you find yourself needing a little bit extra moisture or maybe some fragrance, I think those other products will complement it really, really well. And yes, all of our ingredients are plant-based, ethically sourced. We also have other products that are fair trade certified. So we really keep, our core value of eco-friendly, sustainable, plant-based at the core of every aspect of our products.
All right, then. Folks, if y'all want to support Buttered Body Care, please go to shopblackstarnetwork.com. The product's there on the website, shopblackstarnetwork.com. Be sure to check it out. Brittany, we surely appreciate it. Thanks a bunch and good luck.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so very much. All right, that's it for the show. Joe, Winkuni, and Mustafa, I appreciate y'all being on the panel. Thank you so very much. Thank you very much. We're going to close this out, y'all, with Black Star Network headlines and Brittany Noble. Roll it.
Well, first, an update on a story that we shared on Monday regarding the death of influencer Ashley Robinson. She passed away under suspicious circumstances. The 31-year-old died on April 11th while celebrating her birthday at a luxury resort in Zanzibar with her white boyfriend, who proposed to her during the trip. While her death was ruled a suicide, her family and friends have questions about what really happened. For the first time, Robinson's parents are addressing their daughter's death. Robinson's mother says she got a call from her daughter on April 8th. She told her mom that she and her fiance, Joe McCann, had gotten into an argument and had been moved to separate rooms. Well, the next day, on April 9th, her mother got another call, this one from McCann, who told her that Ashley had done something to herself and was being taken to the hospital. A hospital report noted an unidentified mark around her neck and listed the cause of death as cerebral hypoxia from strangulation and suffocation. Her father said she was happy and never would have done anything to harm herself. The death, it still remains under investigation. Robinson's family has requested surveillance footage from the resort and is even considering traveling to Zanzibar just to seek answers. Well, a Black woman in Jonesboro, Arkansas has been arrested after she was accidentally paid nearly $20,000 for one day's work. 50-year-old Renee Coleman refused to return the money to the Jonesboro business. Coleman now faces felony theft charges. It was a payroll mistake that led to her receiving $1,650 per hour instead of $16.50 per hour for a 12-hour shift as an in-home care nurse. Well, Coleman has said that she thought that the money must have come from a bank loan that she'd previously applied to fix her husband's semi-truck. Well, she's set to be arraigned on May 18th. In North Carolina, we're witnessing the latest consequences of the Trump administration's attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion. For the first time since the 1980s, Duke University will not hold its Black Student Alliance Invitational. Now, this annual program allows prospective high school students to visit the campus. The university says that this decision follows a review of all university programming just to ensure compliance with evolving legal guidance, which includes a memo from the Trump Department of Justice encouraging universities to eliminate affinity group spaces. Black students at Duke have condemned this decision, arguing that it could reduce the number of Black students enrolling at the private university in Durham. Instead, the university plans to host a 2-day admissions event for all students, regardless of race, without any specific programming for Black students. New data from the Southern California is raising concerns about racial profiling at UCLA. According to the university's Campus Information Center, over half of the individuals stopped by campus police last year, both at the University of California, Los Angeles, and in the surrounding Westwood neighborhood, were either Black or Hispanic. Now, this is significant considering that Black and Hispanic students constitute less than 30% of the student population, and these groups make up less than a quarter of Westwood's residents. Between July of 2024 and July of 2025, Black and Hispanic individuals represented 52.7% of all police stops made by campus authorities. In Alabama, a Selma-based nonprofit has announced a new grant to address hunger. The initiative, which is worth $20,000, is a partnership between the Resolve Fund, the national organization, and the Black Belt Community Foundation. Now, the funds will be used to enhance efforts to improve food access throughout Alabama's Black Belt region. The investment comes at a time when 40 million Americans are facing increased challenges in accessing food, a situation worse by delays in the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, also known as SNAP, resulting from the federal government shutdown at the end of 2025.
Folks, don't forget, check out the breakdown with Brittany Noble every day, noon Eastern, right here on the Black Star Network. Again, the breakdown with Brittany Noble. All right, folks. Hey, tomorrow's April 15th. I'll be rocking my Jackie Robinson jersey. Of course, his jersey retired in all around Major League Baseball. So tomorrow's Jackie Robinson Day right here on the Black Star Network. Don't forget, support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. If you want to support us, please do so. Use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here. That's also for checks. That's also for credit cards. Checks and money order. Make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037 0196. PayPal R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo RM Unfiltered, Zelle Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Be sure to download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Samsung Smart TV. Be sure to get our Roland Martin Unfiltered swag by going to shopblackstarnetwork.com. Our t-shirts, hoodies, all that good stuff. You can get it all there. And don't forget, support products like we just having the conversation here, y'all. This buttered jelly. Be sure to support this. And, of course, this very vanilla body glaze, hyper mango body glaze. Support that and all the other products on our site, shopblackstarnetwork.com. shopblackstarnetwork.com. Again, shopblackstarnetwork.com. Peruse the website. You can check out all the products right there as well. So let me just go ahead and add the buttered body care to our grouping here. I'm just going to place it right here. So get the buttered body care right here at shopblackstarnetwork.com. All right, y'all. That is it for us. First of all, don't forget, follow me on Fanbase. Download the app. Follow me at Roland S. Martin, so check me out there. Also, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're close to 2 million, y'all. Let's hit 2 million as quickly as we can, and let's make that thing happen. All right, I'm going to see y'all tomorrow right here, Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Holla!